After her childhood sweetheart lost his wife, my wife suddenly asked for a divorce with utmost seriousness. She said, "Pablo's child is too young, and without a mother. There's no woman around to help. The house is a mess. I can't just sit back and ignore it." I didn't argue with her. I calmly agreed, because in my previous life, I had refused. I'd even gone to her workplace to report the situation, barely managing to keep the marriage alive. But Pablo never recovered and committed suicide by drinking pesticide with his child. Jenny held that against me ever since, spreading rumors everywhere that my family bullied her and that I was abusive. She even went to the authorities at my workplace to report me, costing me a bright future. On my mother's birthday, she deliberately poisoned our family dinner and wiped out everyone. After being reborn and opening my eyes again, I decided to let go. But why is she now kneeling, begging me to come back? Chapter 1. This report, you're signing it whether you like it or not. Jenny snapped harshly, as if afraid I'd cling to her and refuse to let go. The village councilor frowned as he looked at our divorce application and scolded me. "Orson, what kind of husband are you? Do you realize how hard life is for a divorced woman in the village?" I replied. She insisted on the divorce. The councilor was stunned, seeing that Jenny was serious and not just acting out. He had no choice but to say, "Come pick up your divorce certificate once it's been approved." Only then did a smile of satisfaction creep across Jenny's face. We stepped outside, and a heavy rain poured from the gloomy southern sky. Thick with humidity, it was suffocating. Jenny paused, tilted her head toward me, and said with a conflicted look, "Orson, this is just a strategic divorce. Once things settle down with Pablo, I'll come back and remarry you. Then we can return to the city together." She spoke of Pablo's struggles and thanked me for my understanding and generosity. Her gentle tone hit a dagger, sharp and clean, cutting without blood. She added, "Also, let's keep our divorce quiet for now. You know how the villagers love to gossip." I interrupted her. "Jenny Lynn, is there anything else you want to say to me?" Hearing me address her by full name, her smile dropped. "You're still being so clingy. It's just a temporary divorce. Once Pablo's situation improves, we'll get back together." To be honest, she never cared much about the village gossip. What she really valued was my background. But my parents looked down on her, said she was short-sighted and not a good match for someone as proud as me. All the bitterness from my past life surged back into my mind. But this time, it hadn't gotten to the worst yet. If we could end things with some dignity, maybe that wasn't such a bad thing. Seeing I didn't argue, Jenny pulled out the umbrella and smiled. "I have to go see Pablo. You head home on your own." Without looking back, she took the umbrella I had bought her and walked off quickly. Raindrops flicked off the edge of the umbrella and soaked my clothes. I shivered and pulled a medical slip from my pocket. It was Jenny's pregnancy report. Chapter 2. In my past life, it was this pregnancy that made me insist on staying married to her. In the end, the child didn't survive either. Jenny blamed me for Pablo and his child's deaths. Once the rain stopped, I returned to the village. The neighbors all stared at me with a mix of pity and scorn. "That guy from the city. Pfft. Just another peasant in disguise. What a waste of Jenny, a flower stuck in a pile of dung." Exactly. He's a beast. If Jenny hadn't vouched for him, he would have been shot and executed already. Whispers and gossip buzzed endlessly in my ears, making my chest tighten. I had no idea where these rumors started. Twisting the truth, flipping black and white, I dropped the pregnancy report into a water basin and watched it dissolve into pulp. A child. Last time, I sacrificed everything for her, and still couldn't save the baby. Why? Looking back now, the signs were all there. She often said, "Once a woman has a child, that's it, you can see your whole life at a glance. You'll never make it back to the city." Today, I gave her her final chance. She gave it up. Night fell. She never came home. Around midnight, I heard Jenny's voice outside, laughing. "Thanks for walking me home, Pablo. Get back safely." "Okay." A while later, she opened the door with her key and froze when she saw me on the couch. Her smile instantly vanished. Face darkened. She said coldly, her tone laced with icy sarcasm, "What are you still doing here? We're divorced. What? You still think you can monitor me 24/7? Back then, when she had to walk through the fields after work, I used to bike out and pick her up. Afraid for her safety, she called me clingy, said I was pathetic for orbiting around one woman. Now divorced, she didn't even bother hiding her contempt. Reborn into this life, I looked at this woman again and felt nothing. I asked calmly, "People are saying I used my urban elite status to force you into marriage, but didn't you ask me? Didn't you agree to it yourself?" At that, her eyes flickered, and she raised her voice. "What others say has nothing to do with me. They're criticizing me, not you." Seeing her reaction, I finally understood. All those rumors before the wedding, she was the one who spread them. In my past life, I believed village girls were honest and simple. She fooled me. Turns out, even among the masses, there are those who scheme. You fell in the water. I saved you, that was my mistake. You begged me to marry you, I agreed. That was my mistake, too. And now you want a divorce, and I'm granting it. Is that also my mistake? Jenny, do you really have nothing else to say to me? Jenny's face turned pale. Her voice rose sharply. I never begged you to save me. You kissed me and ruined my reputation. That's why people gossiped. You think I wanted to marry you? If you hadn't stained my reputation, I would have married Pablo. You took advantage of me. I had no choice but to marry you. Who are you to judge me? She glared at me with hatred. I thought you were a city man. Marrying you meant a better life, but your family doesn't even care about you. You're useless in the fields. Always starving. You're just a damn loser. She spewed venom like it was second nature. Chapter 3. I was shaking with anger. Back then, when Pablo wanted to break up with you, you couldn't handle it and jumped into the river. It was I who saved you. I performed CPR on you. Yet you spread lies about me assaulting you. You forced me to marry you. I did. And now you're demanding a divorce. And I've agreed. Now, you're still out there slandering me. She had problems with Pablo and forced me to marry her to provoke him. I had advised her to calm down, but Pablo had sent out the wedding invitations first. She was upset, and without hesitation, she came running to me, begging me to marry her. She said, Orson, marry me, and I'll treat you well. If I don't marry you, my life will be ruined. I'll always be called a used shoe. Save me. Without you, I'll die. Take me away from here. I froze. As an intellectual youth, returning to the city required excellent performance, and most importantly, not rushing into marriage. If I married her, it would be like rooting myself in the countryside. So, my father strongly opposed our marriage. At that time, she said she wouldn't mind the hardship, that she believed if she stayed with me, together we would be able to live well. For her, I gave up the chance to return to the city and study at the Industrial and Agricultural University. After marriage, when she heard that returning to the city was still a distant dream, and when she learned that Pablo was widowed, the emotions she had suppressed came rushing back. Upon hearing my question, she looked awkward, but her discomfort only lasted for a moment. She scoffed. What? I've taken advantage of you, and now I'm in the wrong. I didn't ask you to save me. If you hadn't meddled, I'd still be clean. Why would I marry you? Who wanted to marry you? I thought you could take me back to the city, but look at you now. No power, no ability, can't even earn enough work points. Marrying you was the worst mistake of my life. A poor scholar is useless. I stood there, watching her spew venom. For the first time, I truly saw her for what she was, and I couldn't help but curl my lips. Ha. Well, you're right. It's all my fault. I was so foolish. I actually believed she was an innocent, kind girl. I sacrificed my chance to go back to the city to study. Enough. You're a grown man. Acting so petty, Jenny said coldly. Tomorrow, Pablo and his daughter will be moving in. You should move out to make it easier for me to take care of them. With that, she turned and went into the bedroom, slamming the door to express her displeasure with me. Chapter 4. The next day, all my belongings in the bedroom were thrown out by her. She clapped her hands. You can hug your books as your wife. Big deal. Being able to read. You still can't do anything. Just like us. Working in the fields. Useless. Once I packed up my things, I heard a loud knock on the door. When I opened it, a little girl holding a slingshot pointed it at me, shouting, "Who are you? How did you get in my house?" Humph. She said it so confidently that I stood there frozen at the door. Cecilia, don't be rude. Pablo, trailing behind her with luggage, looked strong, clearly capable of hard work. Seeing me, Pablo grabbed the girl's braid. Brother, she's just a kid, lost her mother, doesn't understand. Don't take it personally. He seemed to be apologizing for his daughter, but his words carried an underlying provocation. You've divorced Jenny, right? So why are you still here? By the way, you'll soon find out that Jenny and I are planning to get married. If you stay here, it's going to be awkward for everyone, don't you think? Not long after losing his wife, he was already thinking about remarriage. I couldn't help but sneer. No wonder. Your daughter has no morals, and now she's motherless. You're rushing to find her a stepmother. Last month, at the funeral, you cried and said how much you loved your late wife. Don't you think that's ridiculous? You. Pablo clenched his fists. At that moment, Cecilia shot me with the slingshot. Don't insult my dad. He's the best dad in the world. Unlike you, all you do is live off a woman. Useless. She stuck out her tongue at me, then her eyes suddenly lit up. Mom. I followed her gaze and saw Jenny approaching with a basket of vegetables. Cecilia's face lit up with joy. When she saw me, her face furrowed, clearly surprised that I was still here. She quickly waved us in. You two, stop standing at the door. Come inside. From now on, this will be our new home. Move your luggage in. I'll cook for you. Pablo, looking conflicted, said, Isn't it a bit strange? Orson is still here. Jenny snapped. Aren't you leaving yet? This scene isn't good for either of us. Do you have no shame? I stared at her, expressionless. Her eyes flickered with guilt as she walked toward me, stomping on my foot hard. Wake up, will you? The pain made me gasp. She was wearing high heels. The ridiculous part, those heels were the same ones I had bought for her in a department store before we married. The shoes hadn't changed owners, but the owner of the shoes had changed husbands. Chapter 5. Pablo rushed over to pull Jenny toward him, and they almost embraced. The movement was so familiar and intimate. Jenny looked at his palm in surprise. You're hurt? She had never cared about my well-being. Even after we got married, I worked hard to adjust to farm labor, always ending up bruised and battered. In order to earn an extra work point and buy meat for her, I gave it my all, but I wasn't strong enough, and my abilities were limited. Now, I watched her lead Pablo and Cecilia into the house. She closed the door, and I could still hear their soft whispers. The nosy villagers stood outside the courtyard, munching on cucumbers, gossiping. TSK, Lynn the intellectual youth. I heard you divorced Jenny. What kind of men are you? How could you let a widower steal your wife? With a loud clang, Pablo opened the door, stepping out and flexing his biceps proudly. From now on, Jenny is under my protection. No one better gossip, or I won't spare you with my fists. Jenny looked at him with admiration. A villager asked, what about Lynn the intellectual youth then? Jenny's face darkened. He's unworthy of being my husband. I divorced him. From now on, bridges are bridges, roads are roads, cut off completely, no more connection. Hearing their heartfelt confessions, the villagers whistled. Their gazes at me were filled with nothing but mockery and ridicule. In that moment, I couldn't help but remember the time we held our wedding banquet, when she shyly smiled and said, hubby, I don't mind that you're not strong, and you shouldn't mind that I'm not cultured. As long as we're willing to work hard, we'll live a good life one day. Even knowing that marrying her would mean being stuck in this culturally barren countryside, living in poverty. Now, her promises had become the most ironic joke in the world, and yet, I believed them. Ha ha ha. How laughable. How ironic. How pathetic. Chapter 6. I curled up in the village dormitory reading a book when I received a call from a friend at the health clinic. Jenny had gone to the clinic and was undergoing an abortion. In my previous life, she had been devastated by Pablo's suicide with their child, accidentally miscarrying. This time, I didn't know what she would do with the child in her womb. I had quietly asked my friend at the clinic to notify me of any updates. As expected, Jenny hadn't planned on keeping this child. In my past life, I had tried to keep her by having a child with her, but it only ended in tragedy and a ruined family. This time, how could she possibly allow an unborn child to get in the way of her pursuit of love? The doctor asked, why are you doing the procedure alone? Where's the father of the child? I'm divorced. I can't afford to raise the child. Having it would only cause suffering, Jenny said through her tears. Her words were full of sorrow, but it was all a lie. The nurse, joining in her anger, said, damn man, all he does is take his pants off, not caring about the woman's life or death. I curse him, may he never have a son to bury him. I clenched my fists, ready to leave, but unexpectedly, Pablo appeared, holding Cecilia's hand. He rushed to Jenny's side. Why are you being so foolish? You're having a child, and I'm strong enough to raise it for you. Jenny's eyes reddened, and in a hoarse voice, she said, no, I don't want to have that soft-boiled man's child. I don't want to get tangled up with him anymore. She touched Cecilia's face. Besides, childbirth is too painful. I'm fine with just being with you. Having Cecilia is enough. Hearing that, my anger simmered down, and my hands dropped helplessly. Indeed, what happiness could an unborn child have, if it was already despised by its own mother? This was the best outcome. Without looking back, I left. The spring breeze blew through, and everything began to revive. But my heart, it was still frozen in winter. Back in Lingia village, I felt no attachment. When the villagers gossiped, I ignored them and focused on working. Most of them mocked me as a weak man, a cuckold, a useless fool, until the counselor came to find me, saying the divorce papers had been approved. You and Jenny, what's going on? I hear she's already with Pablo and planning a wedding. I put the divorce certificate away and said indifferently, it has nothing to do with me. Does she know you've been approved to return to the city and attend university? It has nothing to do with her, I replied. She doesn't need to know. The counselor sighed. If she knew you'd been approved to return, she might not have divorced you. You're thinking too much, I said. I could stay in the countryside for her, but she rejected me for not being able to take her to the city. One mistake, and it led to another. Chapter 7. After organizing my documents, I took my introduction letter and purchased my train ticket, preparing to return to the city. On the bus, I sat by the window and glanced at the countryside fields that I had lived in for 6 years. The bus engine roared to life, making a loud sound. Amid the noise, my heart gradually calmed down, but suddenly, I heard a familiar shout. A woman in a wedding dress is riding a bicycle chasing after the bus. Isn't that funny? I turned around and saw Jenny, wearing a floral dress, with 2 braids flying behind her, pedaling furiously on a bike to catch up. She shouted loudly, "Orson, don't go." I gave her a cold glance before turning my eyes away. The person sitting next to me asked, "Do you know this bride?" "No," I replied calmly. When I arrived back in a city, the familiar air hit me. Leaving as a young man, returning as a grown-up, there was a complex sense of nostalgia in my heart. Once, I had been full of youthful zeal, sent to the countryside to engage in agricultural labor, only to face years of disdain. Even when my parents tried everything to get me to come back, I stubbornly held on to my pride. In my previous life, I brought Jenny back to the city, thinking we would live a peaceful life. I reconciled with my mother, but little did I know that it would become her death sentence. Just thinking about how the woman I married killed my own mother fills me with regret. With this thought in mind, I almost ran home. I lived in a shared apartment, and the walls, weathered by time, were worn and faded. "Orson," an elderly voice sounded from the side. I turned around abruptly and saw my mother, hunched over, staring at me in disbelief. Her pupils shook. My mother's hair had turned much grayer, and she had become much thinner. I could no longer hide the emotions swelling up in my heart. I rushed to hug her tightly. They say men rarely shed tears, but it's just that they haven't been truly hurt yet. With reddened eyes and a hoarse voice, I whispered, "Mom, I'm sorry. I was unfilial. I was rebellious for too long, and came back too late." My mother jumped back in shock. "What happened, son? Who made you suffer? Tell me, I'll make them pay. Who dares bully my son?" Her voice was still as strong as ever, and it startled my father, who came out from the living room. He opened the door and scolded, "You brat, you finally decided to come back, and you've made your mother so upset." When my mother heard this, she glared at my father fiercely and shielded me behind her. "If you upset Orson again, I'll kick you out of the house." Saying this, she pulled me inside, ordering my father to go buy vegetables and telling him to buy more meat. After being away for 4 years, nothing had changed in my room. It was still neat and clean. In my previous life, my father had high expectations for me, criticizing me for not being manly enough. Even though I excelled academically, he thought I should have done better, and rarely gave me any praise. Growing up in this atmosphere, I was constantly suppressed by my father. In my youth, I was arrogant and full of resentment toward him, and then he passed away before I had a chance to visit him. After experiencing 2 lives, I now understood my father's good intentions. They loved me, but their love was too traditional and rigid. Years of experience taught me how to be a person. Only now do I realize, the people who love you most in this world are always your family. Chapter 8. At dinner, my parents made a big spread of my favorite dishes. "Look at you. You've gotten darker and thinner. Did you come back alone?" my mother asked carefully. I could see their doubts. I calmly replied, "I divorced her." When my parents heard this, their chopsticks fell from their hands, and they stared at me with wide eyes. They listened to me explain what had happened. My father slammed the table. "What? You just put up with it like that? Sit down." My mother's voice was low and firm. "Control your temper." My father's lips trembled in anger, glaring at me, then looking unhappily at my mother. Are you really going to just let this go?" My mother snapped her chopsticks in two. "How could this happen? Who dares deceive my precious son? Those shameless dogs need to be taught a lesson." I had thought I could let it go, but after seeing my parents again, my anger, suppressed for so long, surged back. In my previous life, when I brought her back to the city, I thought she would settle down. Little did I know, she poisoned and killed my entire family for another man. I remembered how my mother had begged Jenny to spare me. Jenny had sneered, "If I spare him, he'll just kill Pablo. He always protected me when I was young, and he's my family, so you should send him to accompany him." My gaze darkened. They better not provoke me again, or they'll regret it. After my mother's persuasion, I returned to the Agricultural and Industrial University. When I stepped onto campus again and saw the energetic young students, I realized I was still just in my early 20s. While I was at the teaching office, I unexpectedly saw Jenny. She was wearing a floral dress, her hair in 2 large braids, and when she saw me, her face lit up with excitement as she rushed over to me. "Hubby, why didn't you tell me when you returned to the city? I came specifically to find you. Do I look good?" I frowned and looked coldly at the woman in front of me. She pouted and said, "We pretended to divorce so you could come back to the city. I've done my part. Take me to see your parents." I brought them a lot of hometown specialties. Her speed of changing faces was beyond anything I could have imagined. I scoffed, "Isn't your husband Pablo?" Chapter 9. Jenny froze for a moment, reaching out to grab my hand. I coldly avoided her. Jenny pouted, saying, "How could that be? My husband is only you. Pablo and I are just friends. Come on, I know you're jealous." I looked at the people watching us from the side. "Excuse me, Can someone please call security and get these onlookers out of here? Jenny stared at me in disbelief, and for a moment, her eyes became teary. Hubby, I'm pregnant. You can't abandon me like this. Hearing her mention the child, the anger I had been suppressing suddenly flared up inside me. A child, a month ago. Didn't you make Pablo accompany you to abort it? Jenny's face turned as white as a sheet. Her eyes widened, and her body trembled. How? How do you know? You investigated me, Orson. Please let me explain. The child. I looked at her hypocritical face with disgust. Jenny was shaking uncontrollably. I have my reasons. Please let me explain. I scoffed. I asked you before if there was anything you needed to tell me. You stayed silent. Didn't tell me when you were pregnant. You had the child aborted and didn't tell me. Now that the child's gone, you lie and deceive me. Jenny, how low can you be? Jenny shook her head, biting her lip. I didn't know you could return to the city. In the countryside, we can't afford to raise a child, so I kept it from you. Isn't it because you're interested in Pablo and didn't want to have his child, wanting to be Cecilia's mother? I sneered. Exactly. A woman like you doesn't deserve to be the mother of my child. Not long after, the school security appeared, ready to escort Jenny out of the school. I gathered my emotions and headed to class. However, Jenny didn't give up. She found out where I lived. When I got home, I saw my mother chasing her out of the house with a broom. She had thrown all the local specialties Jenny brought from the countryside onto the ground. My mother glared at her fiercely. Get out of here. Who's this crazy woman trying to cause trouble with my son? Chapter 10. Jenny's face was drenched with tea, but she didn't get angry. Instead, she smiled shamelessly. Mother-in-law, Pablo and I have been good friends since childhood. He's going through a tough time, and I felt sorry for the child, so I helped him out. I only have Orson in my heart. Pablo and I are clean. Really, it's just Orson who's jealous. Please speak on my behalf. As she spoke, she even started crying to make herself appear more pitiable. My mother had seen all kinds of cunning women, especially with my father's position. There were always people trying to attach themselves to us. My son used to be too innocent. That's why you tricked him. You don't want my son, and went after a widower. Have the guts to do it but no guts to admit it. I can't stand looking at you. Get out and never try to come near my son again. Seeing my mother defend me like this, my heart warmed, and my nose felt a bit sour. In the past, I only cared about studying and didn't understand the complexities of human nature, and my relationship with my family was poor. It was only after I returned to the city and had just begun to mend things that Jenny's obsession led to a broken family and destruction. Now, Jenny saw me in the crowd and ran up to me. Orson, you have to clear things up with your parents. We're only pretending to be divorced. We're still young. We can still have children. Besides, if our issues get out, it'll embarrass you. I'm your wife. I scoffed. Isn't your husband Pablo? I heard you're having a wedding feast with him in the village. Jenny's face turned pale, tears welling up in her eyes. That's just a regular meal. We didn't register. I heard you divorced me so you could go back to the city. I know you. You didn't want to divorce me. That's why I pretended to act with Pablo. Once you're back in the city, I'll come and talk to you. We'll reapply for a marriage certificate. Really, I'm doing this for you. You're not adjusting well to the countryside. As she spoke, she nervously reached for my arm, but my mother swung the broom at her, spitting. Who's this crazy woman? Lying through her teeth. My son isn't some low-life trash like you to be messed with. After scolding her, my mother dragged me inside. Jenny still tried to follow, but when she saw my father emerge holding a gun, her expression changed, and she fled in panic. Back inside, my parents didn't mention the past anymore, because what mattered now was our family's present and future. Everything else, including Jenny, no longer mattered. Chapter 11. Jenny was stunned when she saw me back in the city, which was so different from our life in the countryside. With my excellent academic performance, my future looked bright. She came to school to block me every day. She went around announcing that she was my wife, claiming that she had suffered a lot in the countryside while being married to me. She even contacted my classmates to try to convince me. Soon, I became known among my peers as a man with questionable character. Her methods were countless, but I ignored them, focusing only on my studies. Before long, Pablo couldn't hold back and ran to a city university to find me. You're a university student now, and you're going to abandon your poor country wife? He shouted loudly, wanting to announce to the whole world that I was a heartless man. Jenny is a good girl, deeply in love with you. Back in the countryside, she was always so gentle with you. But as soon as you come to the city, you turn your back on her. You don't deserve her. Every word was spoken with righteous indignation. Even Cecilia ran out, kicking me with her little legs, crying, "Bad uncle, you're bullying my mom. Don't take her away." Although the little girl didn't have much strength, her fierce kick still hurt. I saw Pablo's fleeting smirk. Realizing this father-daughter duo was quite the team, Pablo pulled his daughter aside, scolding her for being rude. then looked at me with an apologetic face, giving all kinds of excuses. With his dramatic scene, the surrounding students quickly pieced together a new version of the gossip. Who would have thought? Orson comes back to the city and abandons his poor rural wife. Yeah, his wife's too kind-hearted. That's why she's being taken advantage of by the city folks. How pitiful. All kinds of condemnations came from every direction, and my face turned green with anger. Listening to these rumors, I was all too familiar with them. They had brought the rural drama into the city and were playing it all over again. I was about to shout when Jenny's voice came from the crowd. Pablo, what are you doing here? The crowd parted, and Jenny wiped the sweat from her face, running in front of Pablo, angrily scolding him. Pablo, what right do you have to come to Orson? I'm going to remarry Orson. You and I are just friends. You and your daughter stay out of this. Pablo looked at her in shock, his lips trembling. Jenny, he doesn't want you. Come back with me. We'll live well together. Pablo, Jenny yelled, cutting him off. She looked at him with disgust. Yes, I used you because of me. Orson's relationship with his parents became terrible. I know Orson doesn't belong in the countryside, so I had you help me. She then turned and gazed at me with deep affection. She spoke about how hard things had been for her, hoping that I would reconcile with my parents. These lies she spun were so convincing, as though she was stating facts. She had even convinced herself. At that moment, I felt utterly disgusted, almost sick to my stomach. Jenny was truly a woman who wanted everything. To put it simply, she was a sophisticated egoist. In love, she liked Pablo, but she also craved the material benefits that I could provide. She didn't realize that her abilities didn't match her ambition. She wanted everything, and in the end, she would lose it all. Chapter 12. Pablo rushed up to hit me, but security held him back. The situation had escalated within the campus. A leader from the teaching office arrived to inquire about the situation. What's going on here? What's happening? Before anyone could speak, Cecilia stepped forward and hugged Jenny's legs, shouting, "Mommy." She pointed at me and said to the teaching leader, "Uncle, this bad man is trying to take my mommy." Pablo quickly said, "Leader, you must investigate this. This university student is so low class, abandoning his poor wife, and he's supposed to be an intellectual. Is it right that anyone can go to college nowadays?" He spoke with such righteous indignation, as if he were the most honorable man in the world. Jenny turned pale with anger. "Pablo, stay out of this. It's between Orson and me." I looked at this dramatic scene with disdain and said coldly, "Jenny, I saved you back then, but because of Pablo, you ended up with him. When Pablo became a widower, you couldn't wait to divorce me, throw a party, and play the role of a stepmother. Now, I genuinely wish you both all the best in your love story, but please, get out of my sight. Don't pollute my eyes." A trashy man and a despicable woman, a perfect match. As soon as I finished speaking, the onlookers started murmuring, half believing what I said. Jenny's face turned ashen, and Pablo hurriedly said, "Orson, you're bullying a woman. What kind of man are you?" I replied, "You came to find me, didn't you? I heard that the wedding feast in the village was funded by you. Yet, you're now condemning me, even though you've already divorced me. How hypocritical is that?" Pablo's face turned awkward, and his body stiffened. It was clear he had come to take Jenny with him. Jenny pushed his hand away and tried to explain that it wasn't like that. I couldn't be bothered to waste time with Jenny. You better go back to living your life honestly, or you won't even keep your job. At this point, I realized that Jenny's work in the village had been arranged by my parents. I was proud and had a strong sense of self-respect. My parents secretly arranged her job, but didn't dare tell me. After I divorced Jenny, she had lost her promotion, and that's why she had come running to find me. "Orson, please believe me. Pablo and I are just friends. There's nothing between us." After saying this, she grabbed my hand, tearfully expressing regret, and told Pablo to go away. The people around looked at me with sympathy. After such a scene, everyone knew that I was the one who had been taken advantage of. My wife left me for a widower and rushed to become someone else's stepmother. If others provoke me, I'll give way once. If they come at me again, I'll cut them off at the root. Facing these two heartless, unfaithful, and ungrateful scoundrels, what more should I hesitate for? Chapter 13. When I returned to the dormitory, my anger was still boiling. I picked up my pen and quickly wrote a letter of complaint. If they had no shame, then I would help them. No shame. Once the letter was written, I sent it to the village committee and to the production team where Pablo worked. I used the fastest postal service. Sure enough, within a few days, Pablo and Jenny vanished from my sight. They never appeared in front of me again. I immediately felt a sense of relief. Once the trash from my life was cleared away, the world felt full of sunshine. When I went home for the weekend, I was greeted with a fragrant dinner. My mom couldn't wait to share the good news with me. Jenny got fired from her job, and that Pablo, his behavior was inappropriate. Sweet-talking young girls, he was severely reprimanded. It turned out he had been flirting with other people's wives. And it wasn't just once or twice. Pablo, relying on his physical strength and his small position in the production team, had abused his power. My mom, using her gossiping skills, narrated the story with flair. I couldn't help but remember that today was my mom's birthday. Last year at this time, our family had faced such hardship. This year, I presented her with a carefully prepared gift, a radio to listen to the broadcasts. As for Jenny, she no longer had anything to do with me. When I heard of her again, she still couldn't change her nature of relying on men to keep her job. She married a man much older than herself, but her life wasn't going too smoothly. Chapter 14. I focused on my studies in university and graduated with excellent results. Just in time to catch the wave of the economic reforms, I seized the opportunity to start a business, and my career prospered. Eventually, I met a partner who shared my values. She understood my past, and together we walked into marriage, leading a happy and fulfilling life. As for Jenny, I had forgotten everything about her. Time truly heals all wounds. Until 7 years later, when I went on a business trip to Nan County and stayed in the best hotel, a beggar suddenly stopped me, holding a broken bowl, looking up at me. When she saw me, her pupils trembled. "Husband." She dropped the broken bowl and lunged at me, kneeling on the ground. "Husband, you've finally come to find me. Please forgive me, I was wrong." The business partner kicked her away and called security to remove her. I felt a turmoil in my heart, but I kept my expression neutral, still hearing Jenny calling out to me, "Husband, I was wrong. Please forgive me. I shouldn't have divorced you. I shouldn't have aborted your child." Revenge. It's all revenge. Ha ha ha. From my business partner, I learned the full story. Jenny, in her pursuit of status, married a man 20 years older than herself. That man was the vice factory director. Unfortunately, with the enterprise reform, the factory's business plummeted and eventually shut down. The vice factory director fell into despair and took out his anger on Jenny, constantly calling her a used shoe and abusing her. Over time, she went nearly insane and ended up as a beggar. Whenever she saw a man, she would scream, "Husband." She kept apologizing, saying she was wrong. Seeing her in such a wretched state, I did feel a slight stir in my heart, but it was only a tiny one. As for Pablo, Pablo was still the same old dog. After being fired, he went to work in the southern city. He was clever enough to make some money, then started boasting in his hometown. Behind the scenes, however, he got involved with the factory director's mistress and was beaten nearly to death when it was discovered. I saw his name in the newspaper later. In revenge against the factory director, he killed him with a beer bottle. He was caught red-handed and sentenced to death. As expected, karma is real. Bad people get what's coming to them. Now, I was holding my wife's hand and carrying our daughter back to my parents' house. When we opened the door, we were greeted by the smiles of my parents. When I was young, I didn't understand the true value of harmony in the family brings prosperity. Now, having lived through it all, I suddenly realized, happiness has always been right here. There's no need to search for it far away. The pain has long passed. What's left is the ability to see the subtle beauty in life. After experiencing so much, the most important thing in life is to grow old peacefully with your family. With that, I could truly say that I didn't waste the good times of life.